Hi, my name is Juan Raigosa. I operate Terra Preta Farm in Edinburgh, Texas. I chose to do organic mainly when we had our first daughter, and I wanted to feed her with clean food, free of chemicals. And that was like the main reason, but also I think is the right way to farm in terms of taking care of the environment and the human health.
My name is Tony Potenza. My farm is called Potenza Organic Farms. I'm located in Trumansburg, New York, in the heart of the Finger Lakes. I can't imagine feeding anybody or myself or my children anything that was grown with a poison. It just didn't make sense to me.
My name is Malika Spencer. I am the owner and operator of Roots to River Farm in New Hope, Pennsylvania, and with a location in Titusville, New Jersey. We've been operating. This is going to be our 5th season. It never really was a question in my mind that I wouldn't. I think that it's better for my health, it's better for the health of people who eat the food, and it's better for the health of the land. So that was what I learned, and it's sort of just what how I continue to produce.
Hello, my name is Keith Lancaster, and we live on the Duncan Ranch, which is south of Glen Rock, Wyoming, in the foothills of the North Laramie Range.
And I'm Wendy Lancaster, and we live here together with our three daughters. We're already organic in the way we manage, and so if there's a customer base out there that wants to pay to know that that's how their animals were raised, then that's a benefit to them. It's a benefit to us because we get paid a little bit better for that, and so it makes us more profitable, keeps us around, keeps our family fed, and that sort of thing. So there's definitely a monetary reason to be organic.
In the beginning, there was no standards for organic production, so we formed NILFA, New York's organic program, and wrote the rules. And so everybody was playing by the same rules. And there was only three of us that I knew of. And I was the first certified organic farm in New York State. The next day, my friend John Myers was certified, but we didn't have any help from anybody else.
My name is Jean Hediger, and this is my son.
I'm Bryce Hediger.
I do the marketing of the crops from our family farm, and Bryce, along with my husband and his dad, do the growing. They are the farmers. I am the seller. We got our certification in 1988. We were in the first group of at that time, the Colorado Department of Ag, the CDA, formed an organic certification program. They were one of the first states to do this. And so we formed one of the first ones. And so we were lucky to do that. And so we had CDA certification. But as you well know, with the federal program, what was organic in Colorado was different than what was organic in California or Florida or Texas. And of course, that was a really a big conflict in industry for the farmers as well as for the consumers, because it caused a lot of confusion, and it started to become a bit of a marketplace. Buy organic from California, it's more organic, right? So that needed to stop. We needed to work as a nation together. And then came the federal program, the NOP. Mm-hmm.
When we first became certified, we didn't have to say one day we're going to be organic and then wait 3 years for the transition period to be over, because we could document that in the previous 3 years there hadn't been forbidden substances applied to the land or whatever. There was one pasture that the prairie dogs had been poisoned on, and so that pasture was in transition from day one when we first approached the organic certifier. So that pasture took 3 years, but the rest of the ranch only was able to be certified right away. And then once those, when that next calf crop was born, then those calves were able to be certified. We've leased pasture where, as long as we can document with the person that owns that pasture that they haven't done anything in the last 3 years that would prohibit organic certification, then we can get that certified right away. If we were to start with like hay ground, for instance, that had been conventionally operated, we would have to go 3 years from the date that we started that, and it would be in transition. We wouldn't be able to graze any organic animals there and have them remain certified. But then after 3 years of that documentation, it could be certified organic.
So we had a 3-year transition period from getting this property to getting certified. So in that period, I did learn how to keep the right records, and slowly started thinking about certified materials and what that means. So by the time I got to the actual certification process, it wasn't that big a deal. I had all the records that I needed to, the sort of beginning of like, oh, I have to go find the address of the material that I use, the manufacturer, like that's annoying. But otherwise, we have the field maps, so we had what we put on, the fertilizers. It wasn't too big a deal. It would have been cost prohibitive, I think, at the beginning. So being established and knowing how much that was going to cost was helpful. And then the inspection was easy, and the inspector was helpful and supportive, and so far it's been fine.
I think it probably took about 3 months from applying to get certified. We did a little bit of research with different certifying agencies, and we found someone from up north, Nature's International Certification Services, and it was something new. It was a little bit challenging as well because it requires a lot of data on the farmer side, and also was a learning experience. And so we have been certified for 3 years now, and that's it.
Really what this comes down to is your personality and paperwork. If you're disorganized and you're looking to put together thousands of acres into an inspection, it's going to take you a minute. But if you're very organized and have everything together, the last couple of years, it's taken me, 5-6 hours to do this. But I'm very good about keeping records at the time because it's also taken me a month to do this before at the very beginning. That being said, once you get the swing of it too, it naturally helps. And they're trying to make it better and better every year. They've tried to streamline the process a little bit, at least the CDA has. But there's challenges like with everything with paperwork.
A lot of farmers, it's not their thing. And so some farmers who actually are probably organic farmers just don't want to do the paperwork. Well, who likes to do paperwork? But it's an organizational thing. So the Colorado Department of Ag has tried to help, which is our certifier, CDA. They have classes on helping farmers become certified. And, once you do it, it's not such a big deal. And of course, I too have learned the same lesson as Bryce. You stay with it. We enter information into our spreadsheet every day associated with our organic certification. Otherwise, when certification comes, you have 365 days worth of information you have to enter.
We've kept it really simple. We don't use a lot of inputs and a lot of that, so our paperwork is not real huge, because when you start, the more input you put in, the much more detailed it has to be, and it gets a little more complicated. Each field has to have its own field history, and so you have to have any documentation of any inputs put onto that. Like all of our pastures are in a field history sheet. When we get hay in, it all comes with documentation, with a cert and an organic certificate and a transition or transaction slip. And when the cattle leave on trucks, the trucks have to be clean when they get here for no contamination or cross-contamination. So
We have the trucker sign the little clean truck affidavit.
then all the animals are all documented with ear tags, ear tag numbers. So all those records are kept in spreadsheets. Those are records that a lot of people keep anyway, regardless of whether they're organic or not.
Hey, hello, my name is Jordan Brown, and we're here in Gainesville, Florida, right outside the city limits. We have a small farm. We've only got about 20 acres right here, and we grow the fields are about 17 acres of vegetables. The farm is certified organic, and usually in a year, because we double crop almost everything, in a year we plant about 30 acres of vegetables total. And the name of my farm is The Family Garden. Records are a pain in the butt. There's records that are beneficial for farmers, and there's other records that, are beneficial for somebody else because somebody else wants to know about it. Being certified organic does influence my decisions, especially, we try to comply with everything that if it's a rule, we try to comply with it. So, back before we weren't composting the manure in the proper way, but now we are. So it influences my decisions based upon two things. Within the scope of certified organic, there's a lot of things that you can do that perhaps the general public doesn't have in their mind about, what's organic or what's not. Some people think that organic is harvesting wild berries in the forest, or some people think that you don't really need fertilizer. You just have to care for the earth and things grow. But that's not really true. I mean, we have to put out a lot of fertilizer. We have to use irrigation. We use electricity. We use some of the same things that every vegetable farm in America uses. We're doing the same exact things. And I stick by the guidelines about what we're allowed to do. So one example is plastic mulch. We use plastic mulch. Some people don't like it, but every large-scale vegetable farm in Florida and definitely in the Southeast uses plastic mulch exclusively. So, yes, we're going to use it because even though we don't compete directly with those farms, we compete with the prices that the grocery store puts forward, when they're representing those products.
Yes, being certified really affects the way you farm. There is more regulations. Starting from the seeds that you purchase, you have to really do a good search for organic certified seeds. There is maybe some plastics that you're not allowed to use, so you gotta be in communication with your certifier if you're gonna introduce any new product or material into the farm, and just make sure that it's approved. So yeah, it really affects the way your operation runs.
I think it does mostly in terms of record keeping. I think I keep a lot more records than I would otherwise. And I think that's very important in order to make the certification process easier just for me. So I get everyone on a system where we have collective lists on our phones in the field, and then that gets imported into Excel spreadsheets. So that, I think, has changed. Is probably behavioral change, the biggest one.
The first year that we were here, we were certified, along the county road, the county weed and pest came and they crossed the cattle guard, which goes between the closed right of way to the open range area. And they crossed the cattle guard and they sprayed on the open range area, but they spot sprayed and they used a colorant so that you knew where they sprayed. And so we came home one day and we saw where they had sprayed coming up the county road on the right of way, which is fenced and they can spray there. And we kept going and the spray kept going. We didn't know what that would mean to our certification. We contacted our certifier immediately and said, this is what happened. We didn't spray it. The county came in. They were confused as to where they were, or, you know, they didn't do it intentionally to mess up our organic certification. They just were confused as to what part they could spray and what they couldn't spray. And so in that situation, we hadn't grazed that pasture yet. So we put, we started out by excluding the area where they had sprayed with temporary electric fence and we painted a cattle guard on the road, because you can fool a cow into thinking that it's a real cattle guard. And so, yeah, and when the neighbors look at us, sometimes they think we're a little weird, but it's really weird when you're crawling out on the county road with a board and a paintbrush and painting a cattle guard. And yeah, then they really think you're strange. And then when it snowed, and so I'm out there with a broom brushing off my fake cattle guard so that the cows don't cross it. But we were able to graze the pasture in the areas where it hadn't been sprayed, because it was a tiny part of the pasture that was affected. And then the following spring, we were able to bring in a third party. I think in this case we used the NRCS.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And they came in and they took samples of the grass right next to where they had sprayed, and they sent that off for testing. And whatever chemical they used for the spray had a really short half-life. And so when there was no residue found at all in the adjacent plants, we were able to continue to utilize that area of the pasture as normal, because it was not our intent. It wasn't the county's intent. It was an accident. And so so in that regard, we didn't have to go 3 years from that point to where we could use that pasture again. So
Usually the thing you get the most trouble for is doing things that you didn't really understand was perhaps against the rules some way, and you go ahead and tell everybody everything that you did, and maybe you didn't do your compost a certain way, maybe you applied manure at the wrong time, maybe there was something that you did that you didn't know was wrong, and that's usually the type of things that people have problems with. You know, for the folks like for us who want to do organic because it's important to us, we know it's important to our customers, it's important to the people who are eating it, and it's important to me, to be honest. Yeah, that's one thing, but there's a lot of farms out there that are large split operations, and there's not a whole lot that can be done about them hiding what they're doing. So pretty much, if you can fill out papers and you got some cash, you can be certified organic.
You know, what is organic? And also just being certified. You know, were you allowed to just say, I didn't use chemicals so I can sell my product as organic? That was kind of funky, right? Because we're all receiving a premium for organic crops. And so, of course, you can see where some dishonesty might have happened with people who wanted to claim a product as organic when it, in fact, wasn't certified and wasn't. So, you know, we're asked all the time how we feel about the regulations and the oversee. I think it's terrific because, you know what? We want honesty in our farming practices, and we want to show honesty in marketing, and we have somebody that oversees us. And the other thing that I'm often asked is, how do I really know that's organic? Well, it's a very strict, very difficult, very hard process. So what would I say? 98% of all products on the market that are claiming to be certified organic probably are. But it's like anything in life. If you want to cheat, you can. We have thousands of acres. Could we kind of try to lead the inspector to the area where we didn't spray for something? Anybody can cheat that wants to. But for the most part, you know, you have to follow the spirit of what it is that you're trying to do and be proud of that and have no interest in cheating. We get paid a lot of money to raise crops organically and sell them. And, you know, these farmers, when they say, oh, I can't do this, I say, okay, you know, you can just kind of think about what that means to your farm, to your family, to the economics, to the running of your operation. You know, kind of like having to go to the dentist, right? It's a necessarily good thing, but it's a pain. And so I personally, as an organic processor and associated with the farm, I am very happy that the rules and regulations are as strict as they are and as difficult as they are, because besides this, I am a consumer. Family, I buy foods. I want to know that when I'm paying the premium, that I am really getting what I'm paying for. So I know that most always I am, because I know how hard this process is.